right in. On Sunday morning, we left off in our series in the book of Galatians, talking about the concepts of grace and works. These are typically the two ways that people try to find themselves to be right before God. Either our righteousness and our right standing before God is wrapped up in a gift. It's given to us by Christ. It's His work in us. It's nothing we can do. Or it's by our own effort, our own moral performance, our own goodness, our own righteous acts. And Paul, speaking in an autobiographical way in chapter 1, tells us that he's lived both of those lives. That before the Damascus Road, he was completely focused on his own goodness, his own morality, his own legal obedience to the law. He tells us that there are some predictable outcomes from this type of living and predictable results from this type of thinking. Number one, he tells us that if we're focused on our own work, we will, by nature, just compare to others. We'll compare ourselves to others and our own goodness and morality to others. It's a culture of comparison. That's why he says in verse 10 about the concept of approval of others, living for the approval of others. What happens is when you're focused on your own work and being right before God by your own actions, you naturally look around at others and say, well, I'm doing better than him or her, or look, I've reached a level of morality and goodness they haven't reached yet. It's a comparison culture. And if you really think about it, that takes our eyes off God, puts it on others and ourselves. It's not promoting a healthy spiritual dynamic or a healthy worship dynamic where we honor God and see Him for who He is and lift Him up. We literally are focused on our own works, our own actions in comparison to others. The second thing that he says is a predictable result of a works-based mentality is that it creates a culture of judgment. Not only do we compare, but we also judge others. And we don't judge them in a good way. We judge them harshly. We pick out the people who are not living up to the same standards that we're trying to live up to, and then we continually knock them down a notch. That's why it says in verse 23 that it was so extreme that he formally was persecuting the church. Think about that. This works-based thinking, when taken to the most extreme, will lead to judgment, even potentially persecution. Meaning that we'll pick out a group or someone that represents a group, and we'll tell ourselves that because of our own personal pursuit of goodness and morality, that it's okay to, number one, judge them, look down upon them, and even isolate or persecute them. You don't have to look far in church history. You don't have to look far, maybe even in your own personal church experience, to have seen things like this. Where does all of that come from? Paul says it comes from works-based thinking, a works-based theology. And so, as we launch into this book together, just know that there's only two ways to be right with God. One is by His grace, and the other is by your own moral performance. It's just that the requirements for that moral performance is perfection. That's what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Oops. Well, we can't do that. And in lieu of not doing that, it's just a race to see who can present themselves publicly as better, so we compare and we judge. That's what happens with works-based theology. Let's leave it behind. Let's embrace the grace of God. Let's remember that it's only by His grace that we are ushered into His presence and have a sense of assurance that comes by the dwelling of His Spirit. It's only by His promise, His grace, His goodness as a gift to us. Keep your eyes on Him, not everybody else. It'll create not only in you a right heart, but it'll also create a culture, a church, an environment where we're focused on Christ instead of the works of each other or ourselves. All right, that's as far as we can go for tonight. Hope you're excited about Sunday morning. I'll see you soon. Love you, mean it.